You are 34 years old. You make decent money. Not great, but decent. Enough to pay rent, cover the bills, maybe eat out on weekends. Enough to feel like you're doing okay. But somewhere, quietly, without you ever deciding it, your life has already been shaped by something you never studied, never questioned, and never fully understood. Money moved around you your entire life, through your family, your job, your apartment, your debt. And no one ever handed you the rules. No one told you the game was already running. Think back to the beginning. Not childhood, exactly, but that moment when money first became real, when it stopped being something your parents handled and started being something you had to figure out. Maybe it was your first paycheck. Maybe it was the first time your card got declined. Maybe it was signing a lease and not fully understanding what you were agreeing to. Nobody sat you down. Nobody explained the architecture. You learned what you learned from watching, from assumption, from what felt normal in the house you grew up in. If your parents argued about bills, you absorbed that tension without a name for it. If no one in your family invested, the concept never felt like it was meant for you. If debt was just how things worked, the car payment, the credit card, the loan, then debt became your baseline. This is how it starts. Not with a bad decision, with an absence of language. Most people never learn the vocabulary of money. Not because they're incapable, but because no one ever taught it in a way that felt urgent, or personal, or real. School gave you history and algebra. It gave you the mitochondria. It did not give you compound interest. It did not explain what a credit score actually measures, or why your salary feels like it disappears before you can hold it. So you moved into adulthood carrying a system you never built and never chose. And for a while, it's fine. You adapt. You figure things out as they come. You manage. But managing is not the same as understanding. And the distance between those two words is where your life quietly begins to diverge from the life you imagined. The divergence is slow. That's the part no one warns you about. It doesn't feel like falling. It feels like staying still while everything around you moves faster. Level 1. Your 20s. The illusion of fine. You get your first real job. The salary sounds like a lot, more than you've ever made. You sign the offer letter without negotiating, because negotiating feels aggressive, and anyway, you're just grateful to be here. The money comes in. The money goes out. You're not sure exactly where. Rent, subscriptions, food. Nights out that feel necessary because you worked hard and you deserve it. A credit card for the things that don't quite fit in the budget, which is fine. You'll pay it off next month. Next month becomes a habit you don't notice forming. Your student loans are deferred, or on minimum payments, which feels like they're handled. They're not handled. Interest is accumulating in the background, like a slow leak behind a wall. Invisible until the damage is done. You're not suffering. That's the important detail. You feel okay. A little stretched, maybe, but okay. And because you feel okay, you don't look closer. There's no alarm, no signal, nothing telling you that the trajectory you're on has already been set. You're in your 20s. You have time. That's what you tell yourself. And it's true, you do have time. But time without direction is just delay dressed up as patience. Level 2. Your late 20s. The first wall. Something shifts around 27, 28, 29. Friends start buying apartments. Someone in your circle gets married, and suddenly owns property. Someone else takes a job across the country for a salary that sounds impossible, and you realize you've never once asked your employer for a raise. You start doing the math for the first time, really doing it. You look at your bank account mid-month and feel a tightness in your chest that isn't quite panic, but lives in the same neighborhood. You realize you have almost nothing saved. Not nothing because of an emergency, just nothing. Quietly, gradually, from years of spending slightly more than you should. You Google how to start investing and close the tab within 4 minutes because it feels too complicated, too late, too abstract. You tell yourself you'll figure it out when things settle down. Things don't settle down. Life doesn't offer a clean moment to begin. The wall you've hit isn't a crisis. It's a realization. And realizations, without action, just become new anxieties to carry. Level 3. Your 30s. The weight of staying still. You're earning more now. Probably more than you expected in your 20s. But the lifestyle expanded with the income, a nicer apartment, a better car, the sense that you've arrived somewhere. This is the trap that has no name when you're inside it. Every raise gets absorbed. Every bonus disappears into something that felt urgent at the time. You're not reckless. You're not irresponsible. You're just spending at the ceiling of whatever you earn, because no one taught you to treat income as a tool rather than a permission slip. Your net worth, if you calculated it, which you don't, because it feels like a test you're afraid to fail, is close to zero, maybe negative. The car is on finance. The credit card carries a balance. The savings account has enough for one emergency, maybe, if the emergency is small. You look at people who seem financially secure and assume they earn more than you. Some do, many don't. The difference is rarely income. It's almost always what they understood earlier. Level 4. Your 40s. The quiet reckoning. At some point in your 40s, the future stops feeling abstract. Retirement, which always lived somewhere safely distant, starts appearing on the horizon. Not close, but visible. And when you look at what you've saved, the number doesn't match the life you imagined. There's a gap, a significant one. And the mathematics of closing it at this stage are unforgiving. Compound interest, which could have worked for you for 20 years, now has less time and more ground to cover. The contributions you'd need to make to catch up feel incompatible with the life you're currently living. You're not starting from zero, but you're starting from behind. This isn't failure. It's the natural outcome of a system no one explained to you. But that distinction between personal failure and structural ignorance doesn't make the gap smaller. It just makes the weight of it different. Heavier in some ways, lighter in others. You start paying attention now, finally, fully. But attention at 44 is not the same as attention at 24. The math has already decided things you didn't know you were deciding. Level 5. Your 50s and beyond. The narrowing. The choices get smaller. Not dramatically, not all at once, but the range of options you have, where to live, when to stop working, what risks you can afford to take, has quietly narrowed over decades of compounding decisions you made without full information. You work longer than you planned, not because you love the work, but because the alternative isn't ready yet. You watch colleagues retire and feel something that isn't quite envy, something more complicated, more specific. You wonder at what point the path diverged. You wonder if there was a single moment, or if it was always just the accumulation of years spent not knowing what you didn't know. The cruelest part of financial ignorance is that it doesn't announce itself. It doesn't feel like ignorance while it's happening. It feels like life. Here is what no one tells you at the beginning. The system was not designed to educate you. It was designed to function. And it functions best when most participants don't fully understand the rules. This isn't a conspiracy. It's something quieter and more mundane than that. It's just the way incentives are structured and the way institutions behave when education isn't in their interest. Banks profit when you carry a balance. Credit card companies profit when you make minimum payments. Lenders profit when you don't fully understand the true cost of borrowing. Retailers profit when you spend impulsively. Subscription services profit when you forget to cancel. The entire consumer economy is architected around the assumption that most people will not optimize their financial behavior, because most people were never given the tools to do so. This is not accidental. Financial literacy was never added to standard education in any serious, systemic way, not because legislators forgot, but because the political will to do so has always competed against industries with significant lobbying power and a vested interest in a financially passive population. A population that saves aggressively, understands compound interest, avoids unnecessary debt, and negotiates confidently is, from a purely commercial standpoint, a less profitable population. So the knowledge exists. It has always existed. It lives in books, in courses, in the quietly accumulated habits of people who learned early, usually because someone in their family already knew. Wealth, in this way, reproduces itself not just through inheritance of money, but through inheritance of financial language. Children who grow up hearing words like equity, index fund, net worth, asset and liability used casually at the dinner table enter adulthood with a map. Everyone else navigates without one. This is the hidden architecture of financial outcomes. It is not about intelligence. The people who stay financially stagnant are not less capable than the people who build wealth. They are, in most cases, simply less informed. And informed at a later stage, when the compounding effects of time have already begun to work against them rather than for them. The game runs whether you understand it or not. The interest accrues. The market moves. Inflation quietly erodes the purchasing power of money, sitting still in a savings account, earning less than the rate of price growth. Every year you don't understand these mechanisms is a year the system processes you, rather than a year you navigate it. And the system is patient. It doesn't need you to make a catastrophic mistake. It only needs you to stay slightly confused for slightly longer than necessary. There is a particular kind of loss that doesn't feel like loss while it's happening. It has no moment of impact, no event you can point to and say, "There, that's where it went wrong." It accumulates in the space between what you knew and what you needed to know. In the years spent managing instead of understanding. In the decisions made by default rather than by design. Financial ignorance is not a moral failure, but our culture treats it like one. We shame people for debt while building entire industries on the profit of that debt. We celebrate self-made wealth while hiding the generational knowledge and structural advantages that quietly underpin most of it. We tell people to work harder when the problem was never effort. It was information, arriving too late or never at all. The deeper question isn't about money. It's about agency. To move through a system you don't understand is to surrender a kind of authorship over your own life. Not completely, never completely. but in the small, compounding ways that matter most over decades. The job you didn't negotiate, the debt you carried longer than necessary, the investment you delayed until it felt less frightening, which was always just slightly too late. What's taken from people who never learn about money isn't just wealth, it's optionality, the freedom to choose, where to live, when to stop, what to risk, what to walk away from. These freedoms are not reserved for the rich, but they are, quietly and consistently, more available to the financially literate. The good news, if there is good news, is that the system can be learned, at any age, with any income. The map exists. It was just never handed to you. The question is, when you decide to pick it up. You are 34 years old. You make decent money. Not great, but decent. Enough to pay rent, cover the bills, maybe eat out on weekends. Enough to feel like you're doing okay. But you're reading this differently now. Doing okay has a cost you can finally see. Not a dramatic cost, not a ruinous one, just the quiet, compounding cost of years spent inside a system you never fully examined. The rent that built someone else's equity, the interest that left silently every month, the raises you didn't ask for, the investments you meant to start. None of it felt like a decision at the time. That's the thing about financial ignorance. It doesn't ask for your consent. It simply fills the space where knowledge wasn't. But here is what's also true. You are still here. The trajectory is not fixed. The map you were never handed. You can find it now. Not because your situation is easy, or because the system has suddenly become fair, but because understanding, even late, changes the next decision, and the next one, and the one after that. Compound interest works in both directions. It punishes delay, but it also rewards consistency, patiently, quietly, over time. The same mechanism that worked against you can begin working for you. Not immediately, not dramatically, but genuinely. The game was always running. Now, at least, you know you're in it.